The Kara-Khanid Khanate was a Turkic dynasty that ruled in Transoxania in Central Asia, ruled by a dynasty known in literature as the Kara-Khanids or Ilek Khanids. Both dynastic names represent titles, with Kara Kağan being the most important Turkish title up till the end of the dynasty. The Khanate conquered Transoxania in Central Asia and ruled it between 999–1211. Their arrival in Transoxania signaled a definitive shift from Iranian to Turkish predominance in Central Asia, yet the Kara-Khanids gradually assimilated the Perso-Arab Muslim culture while retaining some of the native Turkish culture. The capitals included Kashgar, Balasagun, Uzgan and Samarkand. The history is reconstructed from fragmentary and often contradictory written sources, as well as studies on their coinage. Origin. The Kara-Khanids were a confederation formed sometime in the 9th century of Karluks, Jagmas, Chijils, and other tribes living in Semi-Richi, Western Tian Shan, and Western Xinjiang. The name of the royal clan is not actually known. The term Kara-Khanid is artificial. It was derived from Kara Kağan, which was the foremost title of the rulers of the dynasty, and was devised by European Orientalists in the 19th century to describe both the dynasty and the Turks ruled by it. Arabic Muslim sources call this dynasty Al-Kaqaniya, while Persian sources often preferred the term Al-Ifrasiyab on the basis of the legendary kings of pre-Islamic Transoxania. Early history. The Karluks were a nomadic people from western Altai who moved to Semi-Richi. In 742, the Karluks were part of an alliance led by the Basmail and Uyghurs that rebelled against the Kokturk rulers. In the realignment of power that followed, the Karluks were elevated from a tribe led by an Elteba to one led by a Yafu, which was one of the highest Turkic dignitaries and also implies membership in the Ashina clan, in whom the heaven-mandated right to rule resided. The Karluks and Uyghurs later allied themselves against the Basmail, and within 2 years they toppled the Basmail Kağan. The Uyghur Yafu became Kağan and the Karluk leader Yafu. This arrangement lasted less than a year. Hostilities between the Uyghur and Karluk forced the Karluk to migrate westward into the western Turkish lands. By 766, the Karluks had forced the submission of the western Turkish, and they established the capital at Suyab on the Chu River. The Karluk Confederation by now included the Chijil and Tukshi tribes, who may have been Turkish tribes incorporated into the Karluk Union. By the mid-9th century, the Karluk Confederation had gained control of the sacred lands of the Western Turks after the destruction of the Uyghur state by the Kyrgyz. Control of the sacred lands, together with their affiliation with the Ashina clan, allowed the Karakhanids to be passed on to the Karluks, along with domination of the steppes after the previous Kağan was killed in a revolt. During the 9th century, southern Central Asia was under the rule of the Samanids, while the Central Asian steppe was dominated by Turkic nomads such as the Pechenegs, the Oghuz, and the Karluks. The domain of the Karluks reached as far north as the Irtish and the Kimik Confederation, with encampments extending to the Ai and Ili rivers, where the Chijil and Tukshi tribes lived, and east to the Fergana Valley and beyond. The area to the south and east of the Karluks was inhabited by the Yagma. The Karluk center in the 9th and 10th centuries appears to have been at Balasagun on the Chu River. In the late 9th century, the Samanids marched into the steppes and captured Taraz, one of the headquarters of the Karluk Kağan, and a large church was transformed into a mosque. Formation of the Kara-Khanid Khanate. During the 9th century, the Karluk Confederation and the Yagma, possible descendants of the Turkics, joined force and formed the first Kara-Khanid Khanate. The Chijils appear to have formed the nucleus of the Kara-Khanid army. The date of its foundation and the name of its first Khan is uncertain, but according to one reconstruction, the first Kara-Khanid ruler was Ilek Khan. The rulers of the Kara-Khanids were likely to be from the Chijil and Yagma tribes. The eastern Khagan bore the title Arslan Kara Kağan, and the western Khagan the title Bafra Kara Kağan. The names of animals were a regular element in the Turkish titles of the Kara-Khanids. Thus Aslan, Bafra, Toan, Bori, and Tofril. Under the Khagans were 4 rulers with the titles Arslan Ilig, Bafra Ilig, Arslan Tegan, and Bafra Tegan. The titles of the members of the dynasty changed with their changing position, normally upwards, in the dynastic hierarchy. In the mid-10th century, the Kara-Khanids converted to Islam and adopted Muslim names and honorifics, but retained Turkic regnal titles such as Khan, Kagin, Ilek, and Tegan. Later they adopted Arab titles Sultan and Sultan al-Salatin. According to the Ottoman historian known as Munajim Bashi, a Kara-Khanid prince named Satuk Bafra Khan was the first of the Khans to convert. After conversion, he obtained a fatwa which permitted him in effect to kill his presumably still pagan father, after which he conquered Kashgar. Later in 960, according to Muslim historians Ibn Miskawayh and Ibn al-Atir, there was a mass conversion of the Turks. Circumstantial evidence suggests these were the Kara-Khanids. Conquest of Transoxania. In the final decade of the 10th century, the Kara-Khanids began a struggle against the Samanids for control of Transoxania with a campaign led by the grandson of Satuk Bafra Khan, Hassan B. Sulayman. Between 990 to 992, the Kara-Khanids took his Fijab, Fergana, Ilaq, Samarkand, and the Samanid capital Bukhara. However, Hassan Bafra Khan died in 992 due to an illness, and the Samanids returned to Bukhara. Hassan's cousin Ali B. Musa resumed the campaign against the Samanids, and in 999 Ali's son Nasser retook Bukhara, meeting little resistance. The Samanid domains were split up between the Ghaznavids, who gained Khorasan and Afghanistan, and the Kara-Khanids, who received Transoxania. The Oxus River thus became the boundary between the two rival empires. The Kara-Khanid state was divided into appanages, as was common of Turkic and Mongol nomads. The Kara-Khanid appanages were associated with 4 principal urban centers: Balasagun in Semirichi, Kashgar in Xinjiang, Uzgan in Fergana, and Samarkand in Transoxania. The dynasty's original domains of Semirichi and Kashgaria conserved the prestige within the Kara-Khanid state, and the Khagans of these domains retained an implicit seniority over those who ruled in Transoxania and Fergana. The 4 sons of Ali each held their own independent appanage within the Kara-Khanid state. Nasser, the conqueror of Transoxania, held the large central area of Transoxania, Fergana and other areas, although after his death his appanage was further divided. Ahmad held Semirichi and Chach and became the head of the dynasty after the death of Ali. The brothers Ahmad and Nasser conducted different policies towards the Ghaznavids in the south, while Ahmad tried to form alliance with Mahmud of Ghazna. Nasser attempted to expand, unsuccessfully, into the territories held by Ghaznavids. Ahmad was succeeded by Mansur, and after the death of Mansur, the Hassan Bafra Khan branch of the Kara-Khanids became dominant. Hassan's sons Muhammad Toan Khan II and Yusuf Qadir Khan, who held Kashgar, became in turn the head of the Kara-Khanid dynasty. The two families, i.e., the descendants of Ali Arslan Khan and Hassan Bafra Khan, would eventually split the Kara-Khanid Khanate in two. In 1017 to 1018, The Kara-Khanids repelled an attack by a large mass of nomadic Turkish tribes in what was described in Muslim sources as a great victory. Conquest of Western Tarim Basin. The Islamic attacks and conquest of the Buddhist cities east of Kashgar began when the Turkic Kara-Khanid Satik-Bufra Khan, who in 934 converted to Islam and then captured Kashgar. Satik-Bufra Khan and his son directed endeavors to proselytize Islam among the Turks and engage in military conquests. A long period of war between Kashgar and Khotan ensued. In the mid-10th century, Satik's son Musa began to put pressure on Khotan. Satik-Bufra Khan's nephew and grandson Ali Arslan was said to have been killed by Buddhists during the war, and during the reign of Ahmad B. Ali, the Kara-Khanids also engaged in wars against the non-Muslims to the east and northeast. The war was described as a Muslim jihad by the Japanese professor Takao Moriyasu. In the 10th century, the Buddhist Iranic Sakha kingdom of Khotan was the only city-state that was not conquered yet by either the Turkic or Khacho kingdom of the Turkic Kara-Khanid states, and its ruling family used Indian names and the population were devout Buddhists. Muslim accounts tell the tale of the four imams from Madain city who traveled to help the Islamic conquest of Khotan, Yarkand, and Kashgar by Yusuf Qadir Khan, the Kara-Khanid leader. In the battles with the Buddhists, blood flows like the Oxus. Heads litter the battlefield like stones, until the infidels were defeated and driven towards Khotan by Yusuf Qadir Khan and the four imams. The imams were however assassinated by the Buddhists. In 1006, Yusuf Qadir Khan of Kashgar conquered the kingdom of Khotan, ending Khotan's existence as an independent state. The conquest of the Western Tarim Basin, which includes Khotan and Kashgar, is significant in the eventual Turkification and Islamification of the entire Tarim Basin and allowed the identification of modern Uyghurs with the Kara-Khanids, even though the name Uyghur was taken from the Manichaean Uyghur Empire and the Buddhist Khacho state. Division of the Kara-Khanid Khanate. Early in the 11th century, the unity of the Kara-Khanid dynasty was fractured by frequent internal warfare that eventually resulted in the formation of two independent Kara-Khanid states. A son of Hasan Bufra Khan, Ali Tegan, seized control of Bukhara and other towns. He expanded his territory further after the death of Mansur, the son of Nasir. Ibrahim Tamash Bufra Khan later waged war against the sons of Ali Tegan and won control of large part of Transoxania, and made Samarkand the capital. In 1041, another son of Nasir B. Ali, Muhammad Ain ad-Dawla, took over the administration of the western branch of the family that eventually led to a formal separation of the Kara-Khanid Khanate. Ibrahim Tamash Khan was considered by Muslim historians as a great ruler, and he brought some stability to western Kara-Khanid Khanate by limiting the appanage system that caused much of the internal strife in the Kara-Khanid Khanate. The Hassan family remained in control of the Eastern Khanate. The Eastern Khanate had its capital at Balazaran and later Kashgar. The Fergana semi-Richi areas became the border between the two states and were frequently contested. When the two states were formed, Fergana fell into realm of the Eastern Khanate, but was later captured by Ibrahim and became part of Western Khanate. Seljuk suzerainty. In 1040, the Seljuk Turks defeated the Ghaznavids at the Battle of Dandanakan and entered Iran. The Kara-Khanids were able to withstand the Seljuks initially, and briefly took control of Seljuk towns in Khorasan. The Kara-Khanids, however, developed serious conflicts with the religious classes. In 1089, during the reign of Ibrahim's grandson Ahmad b. Khdr, at the request of the ulama of Transoxania, the Seljuks entered and took control of Samarkand, together with the domains belonging to the Western Khanate. The Western Kara-Khanid Khanate became a vassal of the Seljuks for half a century, and the rulers of the Western Khanate were largely whomever the Seljuks chose to place on the throne. Ahmad b. Khdr was returned to power by the Seljuks, but in 1095 the ulama accused Ahmad of heresy and managed to secure his execution. The Kara-Khanids of Kashgar also declared their submission following a Seljuk campaign into Talas and Semirici, but the Eastern Khanate was a Seljuk vassal for only a short time. At the beginning of the 12th century they invaded Transoxania and even occupied the Seljuk town of Termes for a time. Kara-Khitai invasion. The Kara-Khitai was remnants of the Liao dynasty who moved west from northern China when the Jurchens invaded in 1125 and destroyed the Liao dynasty. They were led by Yelu Dashi, who also recruited warriors from various tribes and moved westward. Yelu occupied Balasagun on the Chu River, then defeated the Western Kara-Khanids in Kujand in 1137. In 1141 Kara-Khitai became the dominant force in the region after they defeated Sultan Sunja, the last great Seljukid, at the Battle of Katwin near Samarkand. Several military commanders of Kara-Khanid lineages, such as the father of Osman of Khwarezm, escaped from Kara-Khanid lands during the Kara-Khitai invasion. The Kara-Khitai, however, did not destroy the Kara-Khanid dynasty. Instead, they stayed at Semiric with the headquarters near Balasaran, and allowed some of the Kara-Khanids to rule as vassals in Samarkand and Kashgar, with the Kara-Khanids acting as the tax collectors and administrators on Muslim sedentary populations. The Karakhanids were Buddhists and shamanists ruling over a largely Muslim Karakhanids, although they were considered fair-minded rulers whose reign was marked by religious tolerance. Islamic religious life continued uninterrupted and Islamic authority preserved. While Kashgar was a Nestorian metropolitan see and Christian gravestones in the Chu Valley appeared beginning this period. However, Kuchlug, a Naiman who usurped the throne of the Kara-Khitai dynasty, instituted anti-Muslim policies on the local populations under his rule. Downfall. The decline of the Seljuks following the defeat by the Karakhanids allowed the Khwarezmids, then a vassal of the Karakhanids, to expand into former Seljuk territory. In 1207, the citizens of Bukhara revolted against the Sadars, which the Khwarezm Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad used as a pretext for invading and taking Bukhara. Muhammad then formed an alliance with the Western Kara-Khanid ruler Uthman against the Karakhanids. In 1210, the Khwarezm Shah took Samarkand after the Karakhanids retreated to deal with the rebellion from the Naiman Kuchlug who had seized the Karakhanids' treasury at Uzgan. The Khwarezm Shah then defeated the Karakhanids near Talas. Muhammad and Kuchlug had apparently agreed to divide up the Karakhanids' empire. In 1212, the population of Samarkand staged a revolt against the Khwarezmians, a revolt which Uthman supported, and massacred them. The Khwarezm Shah returned, recaptured Samarkand and executed Uthman. He demanded the submission of all leading Karakhanids, and finally extinguished the Western Kara-Khanid state. In 1211, Kuchlug seized the throne of the Karakhanids. Earlier that same year, the last of the Karakhanids in the Eastern Kara-Khanid state was killed in a revolt in Kashgar, putting an end to Eastern Kara-Khanid state. In 1218, Kuchlug was killed by the advancing Mongol army, and the territories of the Kara-Khitai taken. The destruction of the Khwarezmian Empire soon followed. Culture. The takeover by the Kara-Khanids did not change the essentially Iranian character of Central Asia, though it set into motion a demographic and ethno-linguistic shift. During the Kara-Khanid era, the local population began using Turkic in speech. Initially the shift was linguistic, with the local people adopting the Turkic language, while Central Asia became Turkicized over the centuries. Culturally, the Turks came close to being Persianized or, in certain respects, Arabicized. Nevertheless, the official court language used in Kashgar and other Kara-Khanid centers, referred to as Kakani, remained Turkic. The language was partly based on dialects spoken by the Turkic tribes that made up the Kara-Khanids and possessed qualities of linear descent from Karakhanids Turkic. The Turkic script was also used for all documents and correspondence of the Karakhanids, according to Diwan el-Lugar al-Turk. The Diwan el-Lugar al-Turk was written by a prominent Kara-Khanid historian, Mahmud al-Kashgari, who may have lived for some time in Kashgar at the Kara-Khanid court. He wrote this first comprehensive dictionary of Turkic languages in Arabic for the caliphs of Baghdad in 1072–76. Another famous Kara-Khanid writer was Yusuf Balazarhuni, who wrote Kutad-gu-Baylig, the only known literary work written in Turkic from the Kara-Khanid period. Kutad-gu-Baylig is a form of advice literature known as mirrors for princes. The Turkic identity is evident in both of these pieces of work, but they also showed the influences of Persian and Islamic culture. However, the court culture of the Kara-Khanids remained almost entirely Persian. The two last Western Kakhans also wrote poetry in Persian. Islam and its civilization flourished under the Kara-Khanids. The earliest example of madrasas in Central Asia was founded in Samarkand by Ibrahim Tamhash Khan. Ibrahim also founded a hospital to care for sick as well as providing shelter for the poor. His son Nasir Shams al-Mulk built ribats for the caravanserais on the route between Bukhara and Samarkand, as well as a palace near Bukhara. Some of the buildings constructed by the Kara-Khanid still survive today, including the Kalyan minaret built by Muhammad Aslan Khan beside the main mosque in Bukhara and 3 mausolea in Uzgen. The early Kara-Khanid rulers, as nomads, lived not in the city but in an army encampment outside the capital, and while by the time of Ibrahim the Kara-Khanid still maintained a nomadic tradition, their extensive religious and civil constructions showed that the culture and traditions of the settled population of Transoxania had become assimilated. Legacy. Kara-Khanid is arguably the most enduring cultural heritage among coexisting cultures in Central Asia from the 9th to the 13th centuries. The Karluk-Uyghur dialect spoken by the nomadic tribes and Turkified sedentary populations under Kara-Khanid rule form 2 major branches of the Turkic language family, the Chagatai and the Kaifshik. The Kara-Khanid cultural model that combined nomadic Turkic culture with Islamic, sedentary institutions spread east into former Karakoya and Tangut territories and west and south into the subcontinent, Khorasan, Golden Horde territories, and Turkey. The Chagatai, Timurid, and Uzbek states and societies inherited most of the cultures of the Kara-Khanids and the Khwarezmians without much interruption. Kara-Khanid dynasty. Bilge ul Khan, Bizir Arslan Khan, Ahulkak Khan, Satuk Bufra Khan 920–958. In 932 adopted Islam. In 940 took power over Karluks. Musa Bufra Khan 956–958. Suleiman Arslan Khan 958–970. Ali Arslan Khan, Great Khagan 970–998. Overthrow of Samanids 999. Ahmad Arslan Kara Kağan 9981017. Mansur Arslan Khan 1017–1024, Muhammad Toin Khan 1024–1026, Yusuf Qadir Khan 1026–32, Ali Tegan Bufra Khan, Great Khagan in Samarkand, c. 1020–1034, Ebu Shuka Suleiman 1034–1042. Split of Kara-Khanids to branches of Western and Eastern. Western Kara-Khanids Muhammad Arslan Kara Kağan c. 1042 c. 1052, Tamhaj Khan Ibrahim c. 1052–1068, Nasir Shams al-Mulk 1068–1080, married Aisha, daughter of Alp-Arslan, Khidr 1080–1081, Ahmad 1081–1089. Yugub Qadir Khan 1089–1095, Masar 1095–1097, Suleiman Qadir Tamaj 1097, Mahmud Arslan Khan 1097–1099, Jabrail Arslan Khan 1099–1102, Muhammad Arslan Khan 1102–1129, Nasser 1129, Ahmad Qadir Khan 1129–1130, Hassan Jalal ad-Dunya 1130–1132, Ibrahim Ukn ad-Dunya 1132, Mahmud 1132–1141, defeat of Seljuks, Kara-Khanid occupation 1141, Ibrahim Tabghat Khan 1141–1156, Ali Chagri Khan 1156–1161, Masar Tabghat Khan 1161–1171, Muhammad Tabghat Khan 1171–1178, Ibrahim Arslan Khan 1178–1204, Uthman Ulu Sultan 1204–1212, Khwarezm conquest 1212, Eastern Kara-Khanids Ebu Shuka Suleiman 1042–1056, Muhammad bin Yusuf 1056–1057, Ibrahim bin Muhammad Khan 1057–1059, Mahmud 1059–1075, Umar 1075, Ebu Ali al-Hassan 1075–1102, Ahmad Khan 1102–1128, Ibrahim bin Ahmad 1128–1158, Muhammad bin Ibrahim 1158, Yusuf bin Muhammad, Minu 1205, Ebu el-Fath Muhammad 1205–1211.